Good morning, Crookie.
Good morning, you good?
Yeah, we're all right. So Pep wants it done quickly. Experts are saying it could be 2 to 4 years. What do we really know about this? Do we know anything yet?
Well, I understand the sentiment because we should be basking in the glory of Manchester City winning yet another Premier League title. We should be talking up this team as potentially one of the best the Premier League and English football has ever seen because, of course, they're on this quest for a possible treble. But in some people's eyes, there is an asterisk next to all their achievements. All the time, these FFP charges are hanging over their heads. I think Pep Guardiola wants to clear their name as quickly as possible. Man City have been quite robust about this ever since the charges were made formal. They insist they have evidence to prove that they aren't guilty of any of these charges. But I think it's wishful thinking because we know already that City have launched a legal challenge against the allegations. There's going to be all kinds of counter challenges. So I think the original timescale, the timescale you've been talking about, Laura, between 2 and 4 years is probably still more realistic. And it's not just Manchester City, is it? We've got Everton as well in a similar situation. If they stay up this weekend, I think that could create all kinds of legal issues from the teams that go down because they'll be saying to the Premier League, well, hold on a minute. Man City have been charged with financial irregularity. There's a possibility they're going to have points deductions. We want those points deductions to come in now because it could just save us from being relegated to the Championship.
But that's the thing, Cookie. And as well with Manchester City, if they are found guilty, what's the punishment in 2 years? You know, does he go back and say, oh, you didn't win that title? You didn't win that, you know, that FA Cup? You didn't win that Champions League? Everton go down and, other teams go down, Leeds and Leicester, and then they're like, oh, we went down, lost all this money, but Everton should have been the one that got relegated with a point deduction.
Yeah, it's a brilliant point, Gab. I don't see a scenario where Man City actually get stripped of any trophies. Now, if you're an Arsenal fan, you might turn around and say, well, that doesn't count because they were, guilty of FFP breaches. Yeah. But we had Noel Gallagher in this very studio yesterday saying, I don't care about that. We've won the Premier League. We're probably going to win the FA Cup and the Champions League. It's not tainted for me. And I think that's how Man City fans will see it. I think if they are found guilty and it's a lot of irregularities, then it could be a very serious points deduction. But I think it'll be a points deduction at the time they're found guilty, as opposed to a scenario where we go back and they're stripped of any.
Probably still winning, Crookie.
Say again.
They'll probably still win it anyway.
Well, it might just make it more challenging, mightn't it, for Pep Guardiola if he starts the season on -10.
Let's move on to Tottenham and talk about the latest with Arne Slot. Is he coming over to the Premier League?
I think there's a meeting due to take place today, which is going to be highly significant. It's between Arne Slot's representatives and Feyenoord. They're going to find out exactly how much it's going to cost Spurs to get Slot out of his contract. I think we can say now, although Tottenham won't admit it publicly, that he is Spurs' top target. He ticks those boxes. He's a young up-and-coming manager, plays attractive football, which Daniel Levy in his programme notes for the last game of the season at the weekend promised Spurs fans they would get with this appointment. And he's very good on the training ground at developing young players. So there are similarities, or certainly in Spurs' eyes, between him and Mauricio Pochettino. The tricky bit is he has a release clause in his contract. That doesn't kick in until the end of next season. If it was in now, then Spurs know, look, here's £6 million. We'll have your manager. I think Feyenoord are going to hold out for a little bit more than that. So there could be a compromise needed.
What about the sporting director? Will he want a say in that appointment?
I don't know. I don't think he's sort of quite as steadfast as Julian Nagelsmann in that. I'm sure he'll ask the question, but I don't think this is a manager who's going to come in and try and appoint his own sporting director. Obviously, he's going to want to know who he's going to be working with. And I'd imagine that Tottenham are quite a way down that process as well, because there's big calls to be made this summer, isn't there? You know, you've got Harry Kane in the last year of his contract. They're desperate for him to stay, or at least desperate for him not to be sold to another Premier League club. You've got people like Hugo Lloris, who may have played his last game for the club because his contract is expiring. And these are all decisions that the sporting director and the new head coach are going to want to have a say in. So I would expect both appointments to ramp up pretty quickly now.
Crookie, Chelsea, look like they might have found a top target to bring to Stamford Bridge, and it's a pretty good one, isn't it, if they get him?
Yeah, there'll be more on this on my transfer notebook on the talkSPORT website later. In fact, we touched on it earlier in the year. Victor Osimhen, obviously been one of the most talked about strikers in Europe this season. We've seen what he's done at Napoli in terms of firing them to the Serie A title and getting them deep into the Champions League. It's my understanding that he is the man that Chelsea want to solve their number 9 conundrum. Mauricio Pochettino, a big fan. He will be confirmed manager shortly. But it's a financial issue because I think Napoli are looking for about £125 million. And obviously Chelsea haven't been shy of spending big money since Todd Bowley came in. But I think they're going to have to trim the wage bill a bit before they can pay that kind of fee.
Can I really quickly, how can teams spend so much money? What are the financial fair play rules? Like, would that not even come into play in this?
Well, that could fill a whole breakfast show. So I'll try and break it down succinctly. But what we know that Chelsea have done to navigate those FFP rules, and again, I think it's something UEFA are going to try and close this loophole this summer. They've been putting people on massive contracts so that effectively the transfer fee is staggered over the period of that contract. So in the case of Enzo Fernandez, for example, obviously they paid £105 million for him. I think it's an 8-year contract. So that £105 million is divided by 8. That's what appears in the balance sheet each financial year, and that helps negate the FFP rules.
Okay, Crookie, Thank you very much, mate. Thank you.
Thank you, Crookie.
And your notebook, they can catch it later on, right?
They can. I'm just about to write it now as soon as I get off this call.
Fabulous. Thank you, Crookie.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Laura Woods, Monday to Wednesday mornings 6 till 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.